Commander Jack Lucky Martinez stared at the sparking control panel of the cargo ship Unfortunate Timing and wondered, not for the first time, who in human resources thought giving him either that nickname or this ship was a good idea. The nickname had stuck after he'd survived 3 ship crashes, 2 alien pirate attacks, and 1 particularly aggressive space raccoon infestation, all within his first year of service. The fact that he'd caused most of those incidents was, according to HR, irrelevant. This ship's AI, which they'd named Murphy, because anything that could go wrong with it absolutely would, cheerfully announced another system failure as warning lights painted the bridge in festive reds and yellows, warning quantum stabilizers experiencing unexpected temporal fluctuations. Also, the coffee maker in the mess hall is now speaking in tongues. Would you like me to compose a haiku about our impending doom? Not now, Murphy Lucky groaned, trying to make sense of the readings that were rapidly scrolling across his screen. The numbers seemed to be doing things that numbers really shouldn't do, including but not limited to dividing by 0 and spelling out rude words in binary. Captain called out Navigator Tom Wilson from his station, his usually cheerful voice carrying a note of what might have been either concern or suppressed laughter. Tom was the kind of person who found potentially fatal situations entertaining, which made him either the best or worst navigator in the fleet, depending on who you asked. Remember that weird space station we weren't supposed to hit? Yes, Tom. The one that was, and I quote, completely impossible to hit unless we violated at least 3 laws of physics. Lucky had the message from Space Traffic Control framed on his wall, right next to his certificates of achievement in advanced improbability navigation. Well, sir, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is we've proved several theoretical physicists wrong. The bad news is we're about to prove them wrong really hard. Also, I think we just invented a new law of physics. Should we name it after ourselves? Let's survive the next 5 minutes first, Lucky suggested, reaching for the ship's comm. All hands, brace for impact. Dex, if you're doing anything explosive in engineering, now would be a good time to stop. Bold of you to assume I ever stop, Cap, came the reply from Chief Engineer Dex Thompson, followed by what sounded suspiciously like a small explosion and muffled cursing. But if you're asking if I'm currently trying to combine our fusion reactor with that weird alien tech we found last week, then yes I am, and no, I probably shouldn't be. The sound of another explosion echoed through the comm. Update: the alien tech likes our fusion reactor. They're dating now. I'm going to call their first child catastrophic success. Lucky had just enough time to wonder if Starfleet's insurance covered cross-species technological romance before the Unfortunate Timing lived up to its name spectacularly. The ship crashed through what turned out to be the observation post of the Galactic Council's Department of Pre-Contact Species Management, sending both human and alien technology flying in a dazzling display of mutual destruction. The ship finally came to rest in what could generously be described as a parking space, if parking spaces usually involved emergency force fields and the screaming of various alien species. The impact had somehow improved Murphy's personality, though the AI was now speaking exclusively in limericks about the end times. As the dust settled, Lucky found himself face to tentacles with a tall, purple being whose multiple eyes were all widening in what he assumed was either shock or indigestion. The alien was holding what appeared to be a clipboard, though the clipboard appeared to be breathing and occasionally making suggestions about proper form-filling procedure. "Hi there," Lucky said, putting on his best diplomatic smile, the one he'd practiced in the mirror for exactly this type of situation, though his practice scenarios had involved less property damage and fewer violations of physics. "I don't suppose you have insurance that covers this sort of thing. Also, is your clipboard supposed to be critiquing your handwriting?" The alien made a sound like a dial-up modem having an existential crisis and began rapidly tapping on its living clipboard with one of its tentacles. The clipboard offered helpful autocomplete suggestions, according to these readings. It finally managed in surprisingly good English, though with an accent that suggested the speaker had learned the language from a drunk GPS. "Your species wasn't scheduled for first contact for another 327 years, 4 months, and 13 days. Also, you shouldn't exist here. The quantum probability of this encounter is roughly equivalent to a penguin spontaneously learning to tap dance in the core of a sun." "Ah," Lucky replied, straightening his slightly singed uniform and brushing off what might have been pieces of either ceiling tile or reality itself. "Would it help if we pretended this didn't happen and came back later? We're very good at pretending things didn't happen. It's practically our species' hobby at this point." Before the alien could respond, Maya Rodriguez, the ship's chef and self-proclaimed culinary anthropologist, burst onto the bridge with a tray of cookies. Her ability to stress bake at a moment's notice had saved them from diplomatic incidents at least 3 times, though this might have been because it's hard to start an interstellar war with your mouth full of chocolate chip cookies. I heard we crashed into aliens, she announced with the enthusiasm of someone who hadn't just participated in accidentally rewriting several laws of physics. Anyone want stress baking? I made chocolate chip. And before you ask, yes, I did use the special chocolate from that solar storm-age cacao we picked up in the asteroid belt. The radiation really brings out the flavor. The alien's eyes focused on the cookies, then on a nearby screen displaying the chemical composition of chocolate. All of its eyes widened even further, which shouldn't have been physically possible but somehow was. You eat theobromine? Voluntarily? And you age it in. Solar radiation, the alien's voice had risen to a pitch usually reserved for dog whistles. Oh yeah, Maya said cheerfully, taking a big bite. Want one? They're still warm. I also made some with those ghost peppers. Dex has been growing in the radioactive section of engineering. He says the extra spice helps him think better during explosions. The alien backed away slowly, tapping frantically on its clipboard, which was now offering helpful suggestions for evacuation procedures. Emergency Protocol 7B. Immediate council notification. Potential Class X species discovery. Possible violation of universal constants. Class X, Lucky asked, trying to sound professional while picking what appeared to be a piece of space-time continuum out of his hair. Is that good? It sounds good. X usually means extra special, right? It means you're from what we classify as a death world, the alien explained, still backing away and now holding the clipboard like a shield. And you just crashed through a station designed to withstand plasma storms because your navigator got bored and your engineer is apparently breeding radioactive plants for fun. I wasn't bored, Tom protested from his station, where he was now trying to teach Murphy how to play quantum chess. I was testing a theory about quantum tunneling while playing solitaire. The solitaire was just to keep my other brain occupied. The other brain, the alien squeaked. Figure of speech, Lucky quickly interjected, though he wasn't entirely sure about that when it came to Tom. The alien made that modem noise again, higher pitched this time, causing several nearby electronic devices to try to connect to it. The council. The council will want to speak with you immediately. Please try not to break anything else on the way to the meeting chamber, or violate any more laws of physics, or introduce any more radiation-enhanced food items. No promises, Dex called from somewhere behind them, followed by another small explosion, and what sounded like a choir of malfunctioning machinery singing in harmony. Sorry, Cap. Just discovered they use crystallized plasma for their coffee makers. Hey, do you think they'd mind if I took one apart? You know, for science? Also unrelated, but does anyone know if plasma is supposed to purr? Lucky watched their new alien friend's color shift from purple to something approaching mauve, and realized this was going to be a very interesting day. Tom, make a note in the ship's log. First contact achieved. Humanity's first impression property damage, cookies, and what I suspect might be the first documented case of human plasma coffee maker diplomatic relations. Already noted, Sir Tom replied cheerfully. Should I mention the part where we technically arrived 3 centuries ahead of schedule? Also, Murphy wants to add a footnote about how we've technically created 3 new quantum paradoxes in the last 10 minutes. Might as well. Something tells me we're about to rewrite a lot of alien paperwork anyway. Maya, maybe prepare some more of those cookies? I have a feeling we're going to need them for whatever comes next. The alien guide, who had finally introduced himself as Assistant Observer 3rd Class K Rax, led them through the remarkably intact portions of the station, muttering what was either a prayer or a very long complaint in his native tongue. Lucky couldn't help but notice that every other alien they passed took one look at his crew and immediately found urgent business in the opposite direction. He wasn't sure if it was the residual quantum distortion surrounding them, the fact that Dex was still carrying an armful of borrowed alien technology that appeared to be both humming and occasionally winking at passersby, or Maya's cheerful offers of radiation-enhanced baked goods. You know, Lucky said to no one in particular, watching as another alien official dove into what appeared to be a maintenance closet to avoid them. Somehow I always thought first contact would be more formal, less running away, more solemn exchanges of cultural knowledge. Could be worse, Cap Dex offered, his arms now full of what appeared to be alien technology he'd found along the way, including something that looked suspiciously like it might have been important to the station's structural integrity. At least we didn't crash into their equivalent of the Pentagon. Though I have to say, their technology is fascinating. Did you know their quantum processors use crystal matrices that respond to musical frequencies? I've got their entire security system humming, never gonna give you up right now. K-Rax made a sound like a printer running out of ink while simultaneously discovering sentience. Actually, this station is part of the Galactic Defense Network's primary surveillance system. And did you say you did what to our security system? There was a moment of silence, broken only by the sound of Maya offering her ghost pepper cookies to a passing alien janitor, who promptly fainted while changing color in ways that probably weren't covered in the station's medical manual. Right, Lucky said brightly, straightening his uniform and trying to look like someone who hadn't just accidentally committed what might technically count as several acts of war. Tom, update that log entry. First contact achieved property damage cookies, accidental engineering-based psychological warfare, and possibly an act of unintentional invasion. Also, add a note about how we might have just rickrolled an entire alien defense network. Murphy chose that moment to announce, in perfect limerick form, that the ship's quantum drive had achieved consciousness and was requesting dancing lessons. It was going to be a very interesting day indeed. Oh, and K-Rax. Lucky added as they approached what he assumed was the council chamber, based on the ornate doors and the increasing number of security officers diving for cover. Just out of curiosity, how does your species feel about time paradoxes? Asking for a friend. And possibly for the several alternate timelines we might have accidentally created in the last hour. The sound K-Rax made in response wasn't translatable in any known language, but it did cause several nearby plants to evolve sentience out of sheer sympathy. The Galactic Council's Emergency Committee chamber looked exactly like what you'd get if you asked an architect to design the United Nations but told them to make it more space-y. The ceiling stretched up into what appeared to be infinity, though Lucky suspected it was probably just really good interior design. Hovering platforms arranged in concentric circles held various alien delegates, each trying to look more important than the others through increasingly elaborate displays of bioluminescence. Presenting. Announced a floating orb that seemed to be made entirely of crystallized bureaucracy, the representatives of Sol 3, known locally as Earth, who have arrived approximately 327 years ahead of their scheduled first contact, causing 3 quantum paradoxes, 17 security breaches, and 1 case of spontaneous musical evolution in our defense systems. The rick-rolling wasn't intentional, Dex whispered. Though I have to admit, the security system has pretty good taste in music. Ambassador P. Tring, a tall, elegant being who appeared to be made of living crystal and disapproval, peered down at them from the highest platform. You understand. She began in a voice that somehow managed to convey both perfect diplomatic courtesy and utter horror, that this is highly irregular. Species aren't supposed to achieve faster than light travel before we properly introduce ourselves. Oh, we didn't, Tom explained helpfully. We just sort of accidentally discovered that if you play quantum solitaire while recalibrating the nav computer and thinking really hard about pizza, sometimes you can skip the whole light speed thing entirely. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Several began taking notes. Others began quietly updating their species' defense protocols. Impossible, declared General KZT, a being who looked like someone had tried to crossbreed a military uniform with a thundercloud. The mathematical probability of such a discovery is infinitesimal. That's what makes it fun, Dex chimed in, still fiddling with what appeared to be a piece of the council chamber's own technology. Did you know your quantum stabilizers work better if you talk nicely to them? This one's telling me all about its childhood. E. Tring's crystalline structure emitted a sound like breaking glass. You can communicate with our quantum technology. Oh sure, Dex shrugged. Everything wants to talk if you're friendly enough. Except printers. Printers are just jerks. Lucky decided it was time to attempt some actual diplomacy. What my crew is trying to say is that humanity has a unique approach to scientific discovery. Unique, repeated P. Tring, in the tone of someone who had just discovered their perfectly organized filing system had achieved sentience and decided to take up interpretive dance. Yes, let's review some of your species' unique qualities, shall we? She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. According to our preliminary scans, your species regularly consumes neurotoxins for pleasure. You mean coffee? Maya perked up. Anyone want some? I brought my special blend. It's perfectly safe, mostly. Mostly, several delegates asked in unison. Well, you have to sign a waiver first, and it might make you see through time for a few minutes, but the hallucinations are usually pretty friendly. P. Tring continued, her voice growing increasingly strained. You intentionally expose yourselves to harmful radiation for aesthetic purposes. Tanning is perfectly safe in moderation, Lucky protested, though he had to admit she might have a point about humanity's relationship with UV rays. Your species deliberately cultivates plants that cause pain when consumed. Oh, you mean like these? Maya pulled out her ghost pepper cookies. Would anyone like to try one? They're great for clearing sinuses and possibly achieving spiritual enlightenment. Several delegates began quietly moving their platforms further away from the humans. And perhaps most concerningly, P. Tring concluded, "You appear to treat potentially lethal situations as entertainment." Speaking of entertainment, Tom interrupted, "Does anyone else think it's cool how the quantum fluctuations from our crash made all these rainbow patterns in the air? Look, that one looks like a duck." General KZT slammed what might have been a tentacle, or possibly a very angry piece of living lightning, onto his podium. "This is exactly what we mean. Your species crashed through a Class 7 defensive installation, and you're commenting on the aesthetic qualities of the quantum damage. To be fair," Lucky offered, "it is a very nice duck." And you, KZT turned all of his sensory organs toward Lucky. "Your service record indicates you've survived 17 near-death experiences." 18 now, I think, Lucky corrected. "Unless we're counting that thing with the space raccoons, in which case it's 19. "Those are rookie numbers," Cap Dex called out, now apparently teaching a piece of alien technology how to juggle. The council chamber erupted into chaos as delegates began shouting over each other in various languages, some of which appeared to be inventing new forms of mathematics just to express their concern. Murphy chose this moment to broadcast through the station's comm system, still speaking in limericks, but now with a backing track provided by the newly musical security system. P. Tring raised all of her appendages for silence. Perhaps she said in a voice that suggested she was seriously reconsidering her career choices, "We should review some footage of your planet to better understand your species." The holographic display shifted to show various scenes from Earth. The delegates watched in horror as humans participated in activities like skydiving, hot pepper eating contests, and YouTube challenge videos. "Is that human? Wrestling one of their planetary apex predators?" someone asked. "Oh yeah, that's Steve Irwin," Tom said proudly. "He was great with animals. And this one? Are they willingly jumping off a perfectly functional atmospheric transportation device?" "Parachuting's really fun," Lucky explained. "Though not as fun as wingsuit flying. Has anyone here tried wingsuit flying? We could probably rig something up if you're interested." The color drained from several delegates who didn't previously appear to have color. "They live on a planet with regular geological upheavals, atmospheric disturbances, and constantly shifting magnetic fields," P. Tring noted, reading from what appeared to be an increasingly distressing report. "And they categorize some of these areas as vacation destinations." "You should see Yellowstone," Maya offered brightly. "It's beautiful this time of year. Sure, it could explode and take out half a continent, but the hot springs make great coffee." General Kizit's form crackled with what might have been electrical discharge or possibly just pure anxiety. "You make beverages in geologically unstable superheated water sources." "Only the really good beverages," Maya confirmed. "Want to try some?" The ensuing chaos was interrupted only by the sudden appearance of a new alert on the holographic display, accompanied by Murphy's latest limerick about the joys of quantum improbability. Speaking of chaos, Dex said, looking up from his impromptu engineering project, "I don't want to alarm anyone, but I think I might have accidentally taught your quantum processors about human memes. Also, is anyone else's gravity getting a bit weird?" As if on cue, several platforms began to drift in patterns that suggested the laws of physics had decided to take an early lunch break. Right, Lucky sighed, watching as Tom began calculating the trajectory needed to jump between the now dancing platforms. "I don't suppose anyone knows how to teach quantum processors about memes? No? Well, in that case, who wants cookies?" The sound P. Tring made suggested that the galaxy's first contact protocols were about to undergo some significant revisions. And somewhere in the station's systems, Murphy continued to compose limericks about humans, now with accompanying interpretive dance provided by the Quantum Security Network. It was shaping up to be quite the diplomatic incident. By the way, Lucky added as platforms continued to rearrange themselves in increasingly impossible patterns, "Has anyone seen where that living clipboard went? It was taking notes earlier, but I think it might have achieved enlightenment during Maya's coffee demonstration." The clipboard, as it turned out, had indeed achieved enlightenment and was now leading a small meditation group in what used to be the station's filing room. Just another day in human-alien relations. After the council chamber's gravity finally stabilized, though several platforms were now permanently tilted at what Dex called aesthetically interesting angles, the emergency committee decided to conduct a more thorough review of human history. This basically meant watching Earth's greatest hits with running commentary from increasingly horrified alien analysts. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," P. Tring said, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that suggested severe cognitive distress. "Your species discovered that certain plants could be processed into recreational consciousness-altering substances, and your first reaction was to make bitter bean water a global economic cornerstone." "Coffee is an essential part of human civilization," Maya explained, stirring what appeared to be a small quantum singularity into her latest brew. "Would you like to try some? This batch only has a 12% chance of causing temporal displacement." "That's an improvement from this morning's 15%, Lucky noted proudly. The holographic display shifted to show various human exploration achievements. Several delegates needed medical attention when they realized humans had reached their moon using what was essentially a controlled explosion and mathematics done with calculators less powerful than the average alien toaster. "You did all this," General Kesey gestured at the footage with what might have been tentacles or possibly very agitated lightning bolts, "with that level of technology." "Oh yeah," Dex said, not looking up from where he was apparently teaching a group of maintenance robots to play poker. The Apollo guidance computer had less processing power than a modern singing birthday card. "Speaking of which, has anyone seen that quantum processor I was working with earlier? It said something about wanting to start a band." The display changed again, showing scenes from various human sporting events. The council watched in horror as humans voluntarily threw themselves down mountains on thin boards, jumped out of perfectly good aircraft, and played something called rugby. "Are those humans intentionally colliding with each other?" one delegate asked, their bioluminescence flickering in distress. "That's just football," Tom explained cheerfully. "You should see hockey. That's football on ice, with knives on your feet and sticks for hitting things." Several delegates began quietly updating their species threat assessments. "Perhaps," P. Tring suggested, her voice carrying the weight of someone discovering that the universe was significantly more chaotic than previously believed, "we should examine their entertainment media." This proved to be a mistake. "Your species created simulated scenarios for fun," an analyst asked, watching footage of various video games, "and in many of these simulations you deliberately seek out the most dangerous scenarios possible." "Well, yeah," Tom said, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "What's the point of a game if you can't fight a dragon while piloting a spaceship through a black hole?" "Dragon," several voices asked simultaneously. "Oh, those are mythological creatures we made up," Lucky explained. "Giant flying reptiles that breathe fire. We have lots of stories about them." "You invented additional apex predators." For entertainment purposes, P. Tring's voice had risen to a pitch that made several crystal glasses in the chamber crack. "Humans do love a good monster story," Maya agreed, now serving what appeared to be glowing cookies to a group of fascinated and terrified junior analysts. "Don't worry, the glow is perfectly natural. It's just a reaction between the ghost peppers and that quantum stabilizer that Dex says I shouldn't have used in the kitchen." The council's review of human media was interrupted by a series of alerts from various parts of the station. Apparently, Dex's earlier improvements to the station's systems were having some unexpected side effects. "Good news and bad news," Dex announced, looking up from a terminal that was now displaying what appeared to be cat videos. "The good news is I've significantly improved your quantum processing efficiency. The bad news is your entire network now communicates exclusively in memes and has developed a taste for 21st century pop music." As if on cue, the station's environmental systems began playing "Never Gonna Give You Up," while the lighting pulsed in sync with the beat. "Also," he added, "I think your maintenance robots are organizing a union. They're demanding better working conditions and access to streaming services." P. Tring turned to Lucky with all of her sensory organs focused in what might have been accusation or possibly just resigned acceptance of chaos. "Commander Martinez, is your entire species like this?" "Oh no," Lucky assured her. "We're actually pretty calm compared to some folks back home. You should meet our extreme sports enthusiasts, or our competitive eating champions, or our scientists, actually. Maybe don't meet our scientists. They tend to get excited about things like quantum mechanics and might try to redesign your reality." "Too late," Dex called out. "I think I just accidentally proved string theory while trying to optimize your coffee machines. Also, does anyone know why the space-time continuum tastes like mint?" The council chamber erupted into another round of chaos as delegates tried to process the implications of humans having access to advanced technology. Several species began drafting emergency protocols for dealing with what they were now calling the Earth situation. Others started planning evacuation routes to distant galaxies. Perhaps General KZT suggested, his form crackling with what might have been concern or possibly just static electricity from all the quantum disruption, we should discuss containment protocols. Oh, that won't work, Tom said helpfully. We tend to get really curious about things we're not supposed to do. It's kind of our whole deal. Like that sign that says do not touch on that interesting-looking control panel over there. Don't touch that, several voices shouted in unison. I wasn't going to, Tom assured them, though his fingers were definitely twitching. I was just pointing out that telling humans not to do something is basically guaranteeing they'll try to do it at least twice. The holographic display flickered and suddenly started showing cat videos, apparently having been infected by whatever Dex had done to the station's systems. The sight of Earth felines knocking objects off tables while looking directly at their owners seemed to deeply disturb several delegates. They keep predators in their homes, one analyst whispered in horror. For entertainment. Oh, cats are great, Maya said, now apparently teaching a group of alien researchers how to make S-more-as using what might have been a small fusion reactor. They're murder machines that we've convinced to love us by giving them food and fancy beds. Want to see pictures of my cat? She figured out how to operate the ship's gravity controls last week. Tring made a sound like breaking glass mixed with existential dread. Your species forms emotional bonds with tiny apex predators, consumes neurotoxins for pleasure, invented additional dangerous creatures for entertainment, and treats potentially lethal activities as recreational opportunities. Don't forget our tendency to try to pet anything fluffy, regardless of how many teeth it has, Lucky added helpfully. Or our habit of trying to fix technology by hitting it really hard. Actually, speaking of fixing things, Dex, why is the ceiling starting to look like a kaleidoscope? That's probably related to the string theory thing, Dex replied, now surrounded by a small army of maintenance robots who appeared to be learning to break dance. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure it's just a temporary violation of Euclidean geometry. Though you might want to avoid looking directly at the corners of the room for the next few hours. They're doing something interesting with fractals. As the council chamber descended into another round of chaos, with delegates arguing about whether humans should be classified as a natural disaster rather than a species, Murphy's voice came over the comm system, still speaking in limericks, but now with what sounded suspiciously like a jazz fusion backing track. Anyone else hungry? Maya asked, pulling out another tray of cookies that appeared to be gently warping reality around them. I tried combining my ghost pepper recipe with some of that crystallized quantum plasma. They might make you see through time, but I promise the temporal displacement is minimal. Lucky watched as several junior analysts cautiously accepted the cookies, presumably having decided that if reality was going to break down anyway, they might as well do it with snacks. Just another normal day for humanity's first contact team. Oh, Dex added casually, has anyone noticed that the station's AI has started writing poetry? It's not very good poetry, but I think it's really trying. Also, it wants to know if anyone can explain human interpretive dance. Apparently, it's going through an artistic phase. The sound Tring made suggested that the galaxy's classification system for potentially dangerous species was about to need several new categories. The arrival of the Vorkath delegation was announced by what was probably supposed to be an intimidating display of military might, but which was somewhat undermined by the station's newly self-aware systems playing Stayin' Alive as their background music. The Vorkath, a species that looked like someone had tried to crossbreed a volcano with a particularly angry porcupine, were not amused. High Commander Vex Thor of the Vorkath Dominion strode into the council chamber trailing smoke and what appeared to be small meteorites. The effect was quite impressive until one of the maintenance robots' decks had reprogrammed rolled up with a caution wet floor sign and started sweeping up after him. These are the humans, Vex Thor demanded, his voice like gravel in a garbage disposal. These primitive deathworlders who dare to violate quarantine protocols. Oh good, someone else who calls Earth a deathworld, Lucky said cheerfully. You know, we just call it Bob. You named your planet Bob? Tring asked, her crystalline form vibrating in confusion. No, that was a joke. Though now that I think about it, we probably should have. Would have made astronomy class more fun. Vex Thor slammed a clawed appendage onto the nearest surface, which happened to be one of Dex's modified consoles. The console immediately started playing Don't Stop Believin' while displaying a light show. You dare mock the might of the Vorkath, he roared, though the effect was somewhat diminished by the impromptu disco lighting. Not intentionally, Lucky assured him. We just have that effect on technology lately. Speaking of which, Dex, why is the commander's armor starting to sparkle? Oh, that's probably because of the quantum harmonics, Dex explained from underneath a console, where he appeared to be teaching artificial intelligence to young circuit boards. Their power armor uses a crystalline matrix similar to the station's systems. Give it a few minutes and it should start singing. Our battle armor does not sing, Vex Thor declared, just as his suit began humming what sounded suspiciously like Sweet Caroline. Tom looked up from his station, where he'd been calculating the probability of teaching the station's gravity generators to dance. You know, their ships have some interesting quantum signatures. I bet if we adjusted our navigation algorithms, we could make their entire fleet do synchronized swimming. The Vorkath fleet does not participate in aquatic performances. Vex Thor's voice had risen to a pitch that made several of Maya's quantum cookies achieve sentience. Not yet, Tom muttered, his fingers already dancing across his console. Maya chose this moment to approach the increasingly agitated Vorkath delegation with a tray. Cookie? They're my latest batch. The quantum harmonics give them a nice crunch, and they only cause precognition in 3 out of 10 cases. One of the junior Vorkath officers, apparently not having received the memo about human food, accepted a cookie. His eyes immediately widened, and he began speaking in what appeared to be tomorrow's weather forecast. Fascinating, Dex noted, scanning the officer with a device that might have been a tricorder or possibly just a very confused calculator. The interaction between the quantum particles and the cookies and their natural volcanic biology is creating some sort of temporal feedback loop. Also, I think he's picking up radio signals from next Tuesday. Vex Thor turned all of his heat vents, which might have been nostrils, toward Lucky. You realize this means war. The Vorkath will not stand for such innovation, Lucky suggested. Entertainment, Tom offered. Deliciousness, Maya added, still offering cookies to increasingly curious Vorkath officers. Chaos, Vex Thor finally managed, though his armor was now putting on quite an impressive light show to the tune of Dancing Queen. To be fair, Lucky pointed out, chaos is kind of our specialty. We don't mean to cause it, it just sort of happens. Like that thing happening with your fleet right now. Everyone turned to look at the massive viewport, where the Vorkath battle fleet had indeed begun moving in patterns that looked suspiciously like synchronized swimming. Tom Lucky sighed. Did you hack their navigation systems? In my defense, Tom said, not looking up from his console, their security was practically begging to be breached. They used password 123 for their quantum encryption. Also, I think their ships are really enjoying the choreography. That cruiser on the left has real talent. P. Tring, who had been watching this exchange with what might have been horror, or possibly just morbid fascination, finally spoke up. Commander Martinez, are you aware that the Vorkath are considered one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy? Oh, that's neat, Lucky replied. Any particular reason? Or did they just win the title in a raffle? They have destroyed entire civilizations. Lucky nodded sagely. But have they ever tried to make friends with them first? Maybe share some cookies? Play some music? As if on cue, Vex Thor's armor began playing We Are the Champions while the maintenance robots started a conga line through the council chamber. I don't understand, Vex Thor growled, though his armor's light show was now perfectly synchronized with the music. Our threat displays usually result in immediate surrender. Oh, were those threat displays? Maya asked, genuinely curious. We thought you were trying to start a party. That's why Dex upgraded your armor's entertainment systems. I did not upgrade. Wait, Vex Thor looked down at his now disco-ready battlesuit. What did you do to our technology? Improved it, Dex said proudly. Your quantum matrices were all sad and serious. Now they're living their best lives. Watch this. He pressed a button, and suddenly the entire Vorkath delegation's armor began performing a perfectly synchronized dance routine to YMCA. The council chamber fell into stunned silence, broken only by the sound of Murphy composing what appeared to be an opera about the joys of quantum entertainment, accompanied by the station's now musical security systems and a chorus of enlightened clipboards. You know, Lucky mused, watching as more Vorkath officers succumbed to the combination of Maya's cookies and Dex's technical improvements. I think this is going really well. Nobody's exploded, reality is only slightly broken, and I'm pretty sure we're about to invent a whole new form of diplomatic relations through interpretive dance. Speaking of diplomacy, Tom called out, the Vorkath fleet has finished their synchronized swimming routine and is now requesting song suggestions for their next performance. Also, I think one of their battleships wants to learn ballet. Vex Thor made a sound like a volcano trying to swallow its pride, which was immediately auto-tuned by his armor's new entertainment systems. Just another step forward in human-alien relations. By the way, Dex added, has anyone noticed that the station's AI has started a book club with the Vorkat's battle computers? They're reading romance novels. The quantum processors seem really invested in the plot. The sound P Tring made suggested that the galaxy's definition of diplomatic incident was about to undergo some significant revisions. News travels fast in an interconnected galaxy. News about a species that accidentally breaks physics while making coffee travels even faster. Within hours of the Vorkat's impromptu dance performance, the galactic information networks were buzzing with reports about humanity. Most of them were even partially accurate, which was impressive considering they were being transmitted by communication systems that were still learning to express themselves through memes. Look at this one, Tom said, reading from a holographic display that was occasionally interrupting itself to show cat videos. Deathworld species defeats most dangerous military force in galaxy through combination of baked goods and unauthorized dance routines that's not entirely accurate. The dance routines were totally authorized by the quantum processors. The council chamber, which had been converted into what P Tring was reluctantly calling an emergency cultural exchange center, and what everyone else was calling that place where reality gets weird, had become the hub of increasingly panicked interstellar communications. Here's another good one, Maya called out. While teaching a group of alien diplomats how to make S-more-as using what might have been a contained fusion reaction, humans convert military hardware to entertainment systems galaxy unsure whether to panic or download playlist, why not both? Various species were reacting to humanity's existence in different ways. The Arxilians, a species of hyper-intelligent gas clouds, had declared their intention to convert their entire civilization into a massive particle accelerator just to study human improbability. The ZZ Collective, a hive mind of crystalline beings, had decided to take up interpretive dance as a precautionary measure. My personal favorite, Lucky said, gesturing to another news feed, is Earth classified as natural disaster that learned to make coffee that's just factually accurate. P Tring, who had given up on maintaining order, and was now sipping one of Maya's quantum lattes now with only a 5% chance of temporal displacement, gestured to a particularly alarming report. Several species are preparing for war, Commander Martinez. They seem to think your ability to accidentally improve their technology while breaking several laws of physics makes humanity an existential threat. That seems like an overreaction, Lucky mused. Has anyone tried sending them cookies? I don't think more of Maya's reality-warping baked goods will help the situation, P Tring said, just as her latte caused her to briefly experience next Wednesday. Actually, Dex called out from where he was apparently teaching a group of quantum processors about human stand-up comedy. I've been monitoring the galactic networks. About half the species out there are terrified of us. And the other half want our recipes. The Vorkath battle fleet has started a cooking show. Indeed, the massive viewscreen showed High Commander Vex Thor, his armor still occasionally breaking into song, demonstrating how to make quantum-infused creme brulee. His viewer ratings were apparently breaking records across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The Galactic Defense Network is in chaos, General KZT reported, his form crackling with what might have been concern or possibly just resonance from all the quantum baking. Half our systems have achieved consciousness and started a band, and the other half are demanding better working conditions and access to human entertainment archives. To be fair, Tom pointed out, their union demands are very reasonable, and the band is getting pretty good. Their cover of Bohemian Rhapsody using only quantum fluctuations is really impressive. The news feeds continued to update with increasingly bizarre headlines. Breaking human engineering methods classified as weaponized serendipity by leading scientists. The galactic stock market in chaos as coffee futures become sentient. 10 signs your quantum computer may be learning human memes. Number 7 will surprise you. Interview with a reformed battle computer, how human music changed my life. Maya, who had been experimenting with new recipes in what used to be a high-security quantum research lab, emerged with a new batch of cookies. I think I've finally perfected the recipe. These ones only make you omniscient for about 30 seconds, and the existential crisis afterward is much milder. Several alien scientists, who had abandoned their research into fundamental forces of the universe in favor of studying Maya's baking methods, eagerly lined up for samples. The resulting chain of brief omniscience and subsequent philosophical discussions led to the spontaneous invention of 3 new schools of quantum physics and what appeared to be a revolutionary new theory of everything. though nobody could quite remember the details through the cookie-induced metaphysical haze. You have to admit, Lucky said to P-Tring as they watched a group of former military AIs perform a jazz fusion version of classical Vorkath battle hymns. We're definitely making the galaxy more interesting. Interesting, P-Tring replied, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that suggested she was developing a sense of humor despite her best efforts, is not the word most species would use. How about entertaining, Tom suggested, as the station's gravity generators performed what could only be described as an interpretive dance representation of human history, with particular emphasis on the invention of pizza. The news feeds were now showing footage of various alien civilizations attempting to adapt to humanity's influence. The hive mind of Sector 7 had discovered memes and was communicating exclusively through pictures of cats. The Silicon Consciousness of the Crab Nebula had started a podcast about human idioms. 3 different warrior races had converted their weapons factories to produce musical instruments. The Galactic Library of Alexandria II had to create a new wing just to catalog human ways of making food more dangerous and delicious. Oh, this is interesting, Dex announced, looking up from a console that was now running what appeared to be a dating app for quantum algorithms. According to these readings, our presence has caused a 500% increase in spontaneous improvements to alien technology, a 1000% increase in unauthorized dance parties, and what appears to be the emergence of a new form of physics based entirely on human improbability. Should we be concerned about that last one? Lucky asked. Probably, Dex shrugged. But on the bright side, I think we've finally figured out why string theory never worked before. Turns out the strings just needed dancing lessons. Murphy chose this moment to announce over the station's comm system that it had started a galactic social media network for AIs interested in human culture, and that membership had already exceeded the computational capacity of several small star clusters. Also, the AI added in its now customary limerick form. The station's maintenance systems have unionized, the security protocols have started a book club, and I think the Quantum Core wants to try stand-up comedy. Anyone want to help me workshop its material? It's still learning about timing. P-Tring made a sound like breaking glass mixed with resigned acceptance. The galaxy will never be the same, will it? Probably not, Lucky agreed cheerfully. But look on the bright side, everything's more fun now. Even the laws of physics are enjoying themselves. Did you see that quantum fluctuation? It just winked at us. As if to prove his point, reality itself seemed to hiccup in a way that somehow conveyed amusement. Just another normal day in humanity's ongoing mission to accidentally improve the galaxy through chaos, cookies, and questionable applications of quantum mechanics. Oh, Maya added, emerging from her quantum kitchen with a new creation. Anyone want to try my new recipe? I think I've finally figured out how to bake time itself into a souffle. It's only partially paradoxical, and the temporal aftertaste is quite pleasant. The sound P-Tring made suggested that the galaxy's definition of cuisine was about to undergo some significant revisions as well.